All right, welcome guys to the podcast. Thank you for tuning in. I'm joined here today by my amazing colleagues.
Willem. Willem is from the Netherlands and Omer from Turkey. I'll leave it up to you guys to explain or introduce yourself more in more details. So why don't we start with you, Omer?
Okay, I'll take the ball. Thank you so much for having us here once again. For our fans who are like tuning in, again, this is our third episode. You might remember me from the first episode. So my name is Omer Subasi. I'm one of the engineers working at FARIL. I've been here for 1.5 years. So I am a mechanical engineer, but I got my PhD in biomedical engineering. And our lab's focus of research is orthopedics, biomechanics, so it fits my expertise a lot. And I plan on staying in academia in the future as well. Well, once again, thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm from the Netherlands, Willem, and I'm here for a couple of months now. So it's my first time in the podcast, and I'm also a biomedical engineer, master student, and I'm working on a couple of projects. One of the main project is like a 3D printed food model, which is on the right here, and another project is a weight-bearing MRI scan, MRI and CT, so it needs to be like without metal parts. And another project is for subtalar arthrodesis as a guide for surgical planning, for surgery itself. And yeah, that's it. I like it being here. It's a very inspiring place. A lot of nice people, good atmosphere, and a very diverse group. Maybe you can tell.
Love, laugh.
Exactly.
I think maybe before we continue, we should maybe address the change in environment as well.
Yeah.
Today we're not in the conference room, we're in our prototyping and engineering room. So that's why you might hear our 3D printers whirring and buzzing in the background. A little bit of disarray, which is always expected in the engineering room. It's not a proper engineering room with that a little bit of stuff all around. So that's how like
We just wanted to switch up the
Switch
environment to suit the topic of today,
Exactly.
which is talking about biomedical engineering, especially about how important it is. I know Omer, last time we spoke about the patient-specific instrumentation, and as the up and coming poster boy of this podcast, since you've become most frequently
a recurring
invited person
guest
here so far, about that last podcast. And we want to expand even more on it, and as having two engineers is the best way to go about it, and talking about this. So biomedical engineering is becoming very much, incorporated in the healthcare, and specifically, things like orthopedics and orthopedics of the extremities, or in our case here, the foot and ankle, right? We mostly work on foot and ankle projects around here in the foot and ankle research and innovation lab. So, this is something that is becoming more and more integral more and more an integral part of our research, right? So, we're going to use this environment to, put everyone in the mood and put everyone in the vibe to our topic today. And, I want to hear more about your thoughts on this, and hopefully, the viewers and the listeners can throw in a thing or two from your experience so far.
Maybe I can start with a question for you.
Oh yeah.
Because you're not a biomedical engineer. How do you think about biomedicals? What was your experience with them?
Yeah, I think earlier today I was telling you I only went to med school. I don't understand any of this. It's really tough. I think it's important to, it also depends, right? Some people in their undergrad,
They have an engineering background, right? And then they go into medical school. And that might set them really well to pursue some sort of biomedical, research properly and effectively. For me, it was a learning curve. Ever since I joined the lab almost 2 years ago, it was a learning curve, but it was definitely an enriching experience. I wouldn't say it's easy without a background, because there's a lot of things that you don't learn in medical school about, biomedical stuff, and how these things work, and how devices and how implants and how, we learn about the anatomy, the physiology, the pathophysiology, and the medications, and sometimes the surgeries, if the surgeon was nice enough to have you, work with them. So I think it's a good question. I think it's not easy, but it's doable, right? And it depends on your background. Especially I think when people think about biomedical engineering, I think they only think about the hardware aspect of it, right? Like you 3D print something and then it's just like it pops up out of the machine in 24 or 48 hours or whatever time it is, and then you use it, right? But it's much more than that, right? And at least that's what I learned. There's a lot of, software, there's a lot of coding, and these are things that are also becoming more and more important. I realized at least over the past 10 years, right?
I think there are in general like three main subjects in biomedical engineering. Correct? Like
the imaging part, which is of course very important for the internal diseases and to discover what's going on inside the body. And you have the hardware, which you said, like the devices, designing a device as an implant or a sensor. And the biomaterials, like which materials are you going to use? How do you choose your material that you want to implant, and how can you change your materials in order to have its optimum function?
What I'm trying to point out to, but yeah, that's a very good point. What I'm trying to point out to is that there's a lot of modeling right behind that, and there's a lot of coding for you to, or I don't know, just digital manipulations that go behind the scenes before you do any 3D printing or device development or anything like that, right? And Omer, I'm sure you work on a lot of these, implants and devices. You sit down for hours on the computer trying to design it and using
these complicated softwares and CADs and whatnot. So these things are that I'm completely not familiar with. So it's or at least my background, and I feel like a lot of people from the medicine aspect of things would relate to a certain extent. But to your point, I think to begin with, right? Let's just talk about one aspect of biomedical specifically.
But I think you mentioned it before. Like, I think in each of these subjects you have hardware and software. And both, like for imaging, you need the scanner. You also need software to after process the pictures and segmentation, for example. So I think in each of these fields you need both.
Right.
And that makes the biomedical engineering also so diverse. And I think at our studies we learn a lot about everything, but not so much in detail.
Right.
So I think you have a background of all these specific topics, and at a lab of FARIL, you have the opportunity to actually go deeper into finite element modeling, for example, or in segmentation, because all the equipment is here. You have the CTs, and you have the tools to actually do this. And I think that makes it in here very nice that there's also surgeons and medical people like you that have knowledge we don't have, like the anatomy.
Right. That's the whole point of this collaboration, right? Is to have medically trained people and engineering, folks sitting together in one place, trying to share ideas and work together. Obviously, I feel like we put more on your plate than you put on our plate as engineers.
I mean, sure.
Yeah, but you guys are real MVPs in here. You guys facilitate most of our work, and we come up with ideas, but the hard work usually relies on you guys. So, what I'm saying is that it is definitely an important thing to collaborate, right, between the disciplines. But maybe I kind of strayed off when I answered your question initially. But let's kind of take things one thing at a time. I want to focus on the aspect of biomedical engineering that we're mostly concerned with here, right? So, maybe Omer, since you have most experience here, what are the main topics or aspects of biomedical engineering that we kind of tackle here in FARIL? And can you give us some examples from your work?
Yeah, maybe we should maybe first take a step back,
because we straight up dived into what we do here. But when we talk about biomedical engineering, actually what we do here in the lab is not the first thing that pops into people's heads, because it's a huge umbrella. There's genetics, cancer research, tissue engineering, and these are actually what pops into people's heads. What we do here in the context of orthopedics with 3D printing, it's kind of different. It's kind of closer to mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, design engineering kind of thing. So we have kind of a niche here under biomedical engineering, maybe I should say. Um, but yeah, so like what kind of like biomedical engineering we do here? So it's it's as I told you, it's like a mutual beneficial relationship between the medical side in our lab and the engineering side of our lab. And I guess this is what kind of makes our lab unique in a way as well, because um, and this kind of plays off into like how interdisciplinary biomedical engineering is. And when you think about it, it's quite a new field as well. Even in the universities, I think like many universities are very recently, in the last like 40, 50 years, opening up their biomedical engineering department. And this type of interdisciplinary research wasn't as common before. So even today, you don't see like many research laboratories having a medical team and an engineering team working together in harmony like we have in FARIL. So I think that's a point you have to emphasize as well. So and part of like why this collaboration is like so critical is especially in research, like us engineers, we aren't trained to like understand what the medical problems are. So we need to be in constant communication with you in terms of revising like what we design, how we can bring our engineering solutions to these medical problems, and then design and like come up with or fabricate something that in the end can be translated into clinical practice, and that's like typically the end goal. And obviously, just as engineers, we cannot do that.
Right.
Or else like what we design will be so out of touch with like what's in clinical practice. I mean, we can over-engineer something, but we don't know if it can actually practically implemented in an actual surgical operation. So yeah. So what happens like after during this collaboration? Maybe we should start with that. So us engineers, we kind of bring on the software side. So we bring computer-aided design, computer-aided simulations and analysis. Then 3D printing, which plays into the manufacturing side.
Which you do here in house now that, which is always a plus, right? Like,
yeah, and we're gonna speak a little bit more in detail as well, I guess, because right now in the engineering place we have bunch of different 3D printers that use different technologies, and then after like we fabricate our like products, we give them to the medical side, and then we have the cadaver testing phase, in vitro testing phase, and then that's how we reiterate through designs. Willem, you wanna add anything to this? Like,
yeah. Actually, for people who are listening who don't know what a cadaver study is,
yeah,
maybe you can explain. Okay, so in the lab, we have cadavers where we try our devices on, or new surgical techniques, or measuring stuff, for which we also might need some engineering parts or tools. So I think that's what you said, stepwise. So first thing is a problem, I think, right? So you see in the OR, in the hospital, a problem. Okay, we don't know how to fix this disease or this injury.
Or maybe then, we do know, but we do want to fix it in a better way, or a more efficient way, or an easier way,
or a less invasive way, and so on. So there are so many different types of values and significance to what a new prototype or design can bring to the table. But yeah, keep going.
Yeah, exactly. So there can be a lot of reasons to start a project.
Right.
And I think most of the time you come to to the lab or in the meeting, you say, okay, we should work on this, and then everybody brings their own stuff on the table. Okay, I read a paper on this topic, and you and that, and then there's a designing process, and then I think then it's our part. Like, okay, we put things on table, like we draw something, or we
sometimes we suggest some crazy designs, and you guys put
us in our place. So it's always good, right? Like, it's not only you guys trying to come up with things from scratch. So sometimes we come up with designs that are super crazy. You guys tone them down to something that's feasible, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, and then you do the testing of the cadavers,
and then that's the first phase, and then after you have a clinical trial, and then the project is finished. And yeah, I think that's the main phase.
It's definitely convenient. It's also funny that a cadaver session is happening right now across the hallway, right? That you 3D printed some, what are they?
I think
ankle wedges?
yeah.
So
Maybe for the sake of IP reasons, we won't.
we won't get into it, but like
Yeah.
we design like sizers, like templates, so that our studies go more smoothly. Sizers in like increments of like certain dimensions, so we can
Gauge the effect of something that's related to the cadaver. So that's like one way we conduct cadaver studies that can be then later published in academia.
Right, and then eventually also as well, like you can patent these things, right? And then if they do get approved and they do
Pass all these regulatory checks, and eventually they can get into the market and you can commercialize it. So there are a lot of opportunities along the way, I think, especially in healthcare these days. So definitely, there's a lot of exciting horizons to explore in this field for sure. So, when you came here with an idea, right? If you don't want to go into details, but I just think it's very interesting. We want to hear about it.
I don't mind.
We want to hear about it.
we can see bits and pieces in the background as well. Actually, right now.
I think the reason why you wanted to come here from the Netherlands is that you want to use the platform here in order to just start up your project, right? With all the biomedical engineering backgrounds, obviously yours, and the people around here, and the expertise of all the different types of disciplines around here that could possibly help you with your project. So please talk to us about your
Yeah, so I was inspired by the Technical University of Delft. I was working there on a project for low resource countries for 3D printing hand prostheses. And in my same group there was one guy making a simulation for a finger. And I thought, okay, this is so cool, and he actually had a lot of anatomy knowledge just by making this device, and I thought it was so cool. He actually knew exactly how the biomechanics of the finger worked, and I got so much inspired by this. And then I was thinking, okay, I like 3D printing. It's it's something I just like, and I think it's a cool thing to explore more and more. And I saw the opportunity to come here, and by inspiration of this professor, Dr. Gerard Smit in Delft, I thought, okay, I propose something similar by also a simulation, but then the foot and ankle, since we are in the foot and ankle research innovation lab. But the foot is a bit more difficult than the finger, I would say.
it's way more complicated.
So the idea is different.
Especially biomechanically, right?
Biomechanical, there are so many, I think there are 28 bones, I believe.
So many ligaments,
So
tendons,
many
so
ligaments.
take
So
into
my
account.
idea is different than from what I saw in Delft, because that project was about preciseness, and mine is more like in global, for like the total foot. Okay, how does it behave?
So you do that by 3D printing the bones of the foot and then creating an anatomical model that you can apply forces to, or can you talk to more?
Yeah, so we started from a CT scan from a normal weight-bearing person, standing normal straight, and have a CT. Then we segmented all the bones, so we make a mesh of the CT scan, we make a structure like a surface. Then we actually give the surface a certain thickness, and so let this be hollow in the inside, we have the mechanical strength on the outside, and we perforating the surface in order to attach the ligaments and the tendons. Tendons, for people who might don't know, is the ending of a muscle, and the ligaments are the support between both bones without a muscle force, right? If I'm correct?
No, absolutely.
Okay, and the idea is to fixate these bones, the tibia and the fibula, to an external frame and attach pulleys and apply forces as your muscles does in the lower leg.
Okay, so to
simulate how these forces, affect or create vector forces on the bones themselves.
Exactly. And which ligament gives support and what amount of the
Right.
Interesting.
And so how far are you into this? Are you making progress? Are you?
Yeah, I think I've still a lot. That's why we have another second printer.
the one that you bought
Yeah.
on
So to put it in perspective,
just increase
the speed. To put it in perspective, the talus is not the
Biggest
biggest.
bone in the foot, but in the ankle, it takes 2 days to print.
Wow, 2
yeah.
days.
2
But
days.
I think that also depends on the size, right?
Yeah,
Because
you're
I see-
scaling it
I
up.
see-
You
So,
gotta- yeah.
yeah. I'm
Right,
scaling
like,
it up. Yeah.
okay, so I do understand that if a structure is very complex, right, it might take more time. Is that correct or no?
Not really. I mean, every shell structure or hollow you need the support. So that's
Takes time. The shape doesn't really matter.
doesn't really matter, right? Because it does it plane by plane, and it goes through the same every plane the same amount of time, regardless of how much complex it is.
That's so you can optimize how, especially for like the filament printers. So there are like stepper motors that are acting in XYZ direction, and sometimes
The path it can take could be shorter than another path
Okay.
that the motor can take. So you can optimize, these like nozzle or like deposition motor paths so that it prints at a faster speed too. So like,
I thought maybe you can explain a bit
Yeah.
about like the 3 different printers we have.
okay, so yeah, I think it's a good opportunity to talk about because we have all 3 printers are actually around the engineering room here. We won't be able to like move the camera to like I guess show every one of them. But I guess
Feel them in spirit.
we
Right?
feel them in spirit. In the background right now, working one, and maybe Willem, you can talk more since you use this filament printer a little bit more.
We mentioned filament
Yeah.
printer, and filament means there's like a thread, a plastic thread, how you call it, like a wire actually, got hot.
Fed
and-
into the extruder,
yeah, go to
heated
the
up,
extruder, yeah.
and then deposited, which is like the most common way to 3D print. Or every single hobbyist like has one of these like fused deposition modeling printers.
Yeah. And you're more expert in the powder print and resin.
So yeah, so our lab FARIL has had a collaboration with Formlabs, one of the leading 3D printing companies in the industry for some time now, and we're using their printers extensively. And like the technologies they've given are SLA, which is a stereolithography using resin, and SLS, selective laser sintering, which is using powder for 3D printing. And we have actually some products on the table that we fabricated using those technologies. So let me start with SLA, maybe resin printing. So we have these photopolymers that we can
cure using laser. So we have a tray full of photopolymer resin, and then there's a laser beneath. So just very basic explanation of how SLA technology works, which cures that resin by going through the slice, the contour of the 3D printing, and layer by layer the print bed is raised upwards in SLA, and then we can 3D print products. So these are some of the early prototypes of a surgical instrument we're printing. With resin, actually, you can print part of noodle and strong structures as well. And another thing that's like worth mentioning is Formlabs has these compatible grade resins, which means you can print medical devices that can contact patients safely, like contact skin or even like implanted.
Implanted in someone's body?
Implanted in someone's body. Yeah. So
is that even like you printed?
So these biomedical grade resins, they can be sterilized and like autoclaved.
Okay. Because I
So
remember I
that's-
asked that question in the first podcast.
Yeah.
We were talking about PSIs. And I think at the time we didn't necessarily. I mean, we thought it was a challenge. Is that something that's new? That we realized that.
So I think like not as new. Like this came to market from our last podcast, but these are like kind of new grade resins that is now only for like a couple more years, not more than that. So
Okay.
But yeah, that's like one advantage of SLA printing. And the other technology I want to talk a little bit more about is the powder printing. And powder printing is typically more associated with metal printing, but Formlabs has this powder printer that lets us use plastic powder instead of metal powder and I have like this little crab.
How well you can see. This is one of actually the demo products. You can show. So The advantage of powder
That's
printing,
scary, real.
powder printing is you can actually print without supports. With filament printing, resin printing, you need supports, and that means added post-processing steps to get like great surface quality. You need to like grind it down sometimes. But with these type of powder sintering technologies, and especially for the fuse machine I have behind me, you can print without supports. And what that means is you can design your product in such a way that it comes out with moving joints already.
Nice.
And here's another.
You don't necessarily have to assemble them.
Assemble anything, yeah. You can just design it on the computer using a 3D modeling software with joints, and then you just leave a little bit of tolerances between the joints, and then it comes out of the printer already with like moving joints. So here, this is another demo product, and it has like a gear mechanism, and there's like butterfly wings that's
and this is all printed at the same time.
This is all printed at the same time without any support. So it's just prints inside the powder cake is what they call it. So you don't need support.
This is impossible with filament.
This is impossible with filament and resin printers. So there are a lot of interesting research that can be done with this type of technology.
I have a question actually. Is it also more
Precise. The resolution, is it higher with powder printer or?
So
It seems like it.
yeah, from my experience at least, yeah, the powder printer has the best resolution, but ultimately it kind of boils down to your like laser size, right? And with this powder printer, I think we have a really fine and sensitive like laser, so we can go probably around, if I'm not mistaken, like 100 microns resolution. SLA is kind of similar too. I mean, they're using a similar laser in resin printing as well, and we can go down to like 200, 100 micron resolution that as well. So these are quite precise 3D printers, I should say. And with the filament printer, obviously you have a much larger nozzle, like you don't use lasers.
0.4 millimeters.
0.4 millimeters, so 400 microns. So obviously your resolution is gonna be worse compared to these other machines. But obviously, filament printer is much cheaper. The material is cheaper. So for printing something in large volume, you might definitely prefer filament printing.
Yeah.
That's
insane, to be honest with you. Like, I while you guys are talking, I was thinking back in maybe 2010 or 2011. I don't know if 3D printing was that common or popular or robust.
I think in Formlabs, they mentioned 12 years ago they had the first printer, right? So something
12 years ago?
It is true.
But you know, it was
For SLA, I'm pretty sure the filament printing goes.
it was so fictional, right?
Yeah.
Like, if people spoke about, you know, we knew that there was a printer, you printed from your fax machine, or you printed your scanned copies, that is your 2D printing. And that's what we knew at the time. And then, like, when people spoke about 3D printing, it was just so fictional and crazy and out of this world. And now, 10 years later, like, we're doing all these crazy things.
It's so common.
You know, and it makes research more, like, makes it easier, it facilitates, you know, discovery more, it allows us to test easily. I can't even imagine how research labs or companies or industry used to design and prototype their biomedical devices before. I think you guys have any idea about how they
much lower speed, I would say.
Much lower speed.
They didn't have 3D printers, of
Definitely.
course.
So before 3D printers, you just like resort to traditional manufacturing methods. You have to use like milling machines, lathes, to cut metal. You have to do like maybe metal working, forging to come up with like metallic surgical instruments. That's still how they like
Manufacture surgical instruments today as well. I love a lot of metal working, but like for prototyping, iterating through designs, this is just you almost instantly in a day design something on the computer and you have it in front of you,
right.
In a matter of hours.
And I think that this advantage, the ability to design something on the go using a personalized model, and this goes back maybe to the PSI talk that we did, you know, is that you're moving away from that one size fits all paradigm, right? You're having a paradigm shift from that one size fits all, way of manufacturing these devices and implants and whatever, which is great, right? But I think there's a lot more work to make this more commercial,
feasible, cheaper. I think we're able to do these things at this point, but I don't think we reached the point where this can be on a wide scale. Is that correct?
To be honest, I think the most valuable thing of this can also be in the resource.
Right.
I think the interesting thing of not especially countries but also places like the hand in particular Bell. What they did is they sent this 3D printer to Ukraine. During there were a lot of bad injuries that people had to
cut off their arms, even legs. And they sent printers there, and they were able to make space-specific devices by length or what happened, and give them prosthetics like in a week. And normally this costs so much money and time and knowledge.
Right.
And all reduces
and
resources. You only need like a good power supply. That's the only thing you need.
Right.
And you can print it, and even somebody in another place can design it for you.
Right.
Yeah,
you can do that.
it's crazy. How helpful is this?
I have seen those. I have seen these. What you're talking about, the prosthetics, the 3D printed prosthetics that have been given, amputees and things like it. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
It's facilitating all these things. I think also, going back a few, maybe a decade or two ago, prosthetics were very hard to get by. I would assume they were not necessarily as reliable. They were not custom made for the most part. They come in like different preset sizes, I believe. So this definitely helped in that field, I'm sure. Yeah.
But also, like as an engineering perspective, you're working in ultrasound a lot, right? Also, these devices, you can also transfer them to low tech, more or less. They will cut off the high resolution, but then you can use them on your phone, for example. There's also a big shift towards make it more applicable in multiple fields or locations, right? So nowadays the chip on your smartphone is already so good in processing this data that you almost can plug in the ultrasound on your phone. Maybe it's possible, I don't know, but
I mean, some of these portable ultrasounds, like the newer
ones, they can link into an app on the phone, and you can just view like video.
I think that's a nice shift in the environment.
It is. It's honestly, it's a good time to be, in the field. It's rapidly evolving. There are many new things coming up every year, almost, if not every month, like these days. And to be someone, or at least for us, all three of us, to be early in our careers, it's an exciting time to be part of this. I think not a lot of people, or not a lot of generations we're this lucky to experience so many advancements in such a short amount of time. Especially in our field, where it's really meaningful. It's not like you're creating something that provides luxury. It's not like you're creating something that provides leisure. It's not like you're creating something that, I don't know. You're creating something that improves people's lives, makes, or at least allows them to live with their disability or their disease more peacefully. And it's just fun at the same time. And I'm sure you guys enjoy most of the fun being here in this room, hearing all this whizzing, stuff like that. I mean, I was looking at this playlist that you were 3D printing right before we started this podcast, and I zoned out. I was looking at it for a few seconds, but I zoned out completely. I was just baffled by how precise and how it's going from one place to another and making this one layer at a time.
It's important how the
this teaches you patience. This teaches you
there's
patience.
a camera and you can see the laser just like melting the powder in each layer. That's like fascinating to look at also. Next time, like I'm running this, I'll show you. There's a real-time camera inside the machine. You can see every single layer, like laser going.
You should definitely see that.
But also, I mean, there's a lot of new things coming up, right? It's also
nice to think where does it end or where should it end? like the Neuralink, maybe you heard about it from Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Where are they with this now?
I think I saw a pig who can say I'm
right.
hungry,
I heard
something
about
like
this.
this.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. Of course, this technology also comes with some sort of responsibility. I think with printing we are safe, like the bio. We're not gonna build ourselves.
I mean, this is biomedical engineering too, the Neuralink thing, right? Like, it's
more sensory
biomedical
based.
engineering is not only 3D printing and prototyping, right? Biomedical engineering is applying technology into healthcare,
mechatronics, mechanical.
right? So this
Electrical
is under biomedical engineering, and I think to a certain extent, like, what do they call them? Bionic people.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What do they call them? I saw them growing up in cartoons and you know.
You're not far from that,
right?
but also
like
super far. But
I feel like eventually, right, biomedical engineering is going to allow us to have bionic.
Just copy your brain.
Is it bionic or am I?
I think you're bionic.
Is it bionic?
Bionics is a like branch of like orthopedics. It's like
No, it's not bionics then, right?
no. It's like prosthetics. Smart prosthetics is called
It's like
bionics.
half living, half robot.
I think you're
Cyborgs.
Cyborg?
Is one called like half human,
Why
half
did I think
machine.
it was bionic?
I think you're
it's similar though.
Cyborg? You think it's cyborg?
Could be. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like eventually that's where it's going to be like, and then would that allow some people to have extra superhuman capacities, and people who aren't fortunate enough to have, biomedical engineering capacities in third world or places that are poor and underserved, might not be able to do these things. I mean, there are a lot of practical considerations and questions that could be in place here, right? It's with anything almost. But I also felt the same fear mongering with AI, and I still don't think it's gonna be like catastrophic. When computers first came out, everybody was also skeptical. Everybody was, scared. Everybody thought the robots were gonna take over the world. Maybe it's part of the process. I don't know, but I still don't believe it. But there will be a lot of. I mean, cars kill a lot of people. When cars first came out, nobody said like, "Oh my God!" Like, I don't know how many people die every year from car accidents, but this X thousand amount of people are going to be killed by this horrible machine. So
at the same time, you get so much freedom,
right? Yeah. So you need to weigh these things, and I think there's a lot more positives that the efforts of biomedical engineers in the field would bring at the end of the day than any negatives or unethical consequences, I would say. But yeah, I think we would have a good shot at seeing the results of that in our lifetime. So I'm excited.
hopefully,
I think we have 30, 40 years ahead of us. I think in the last 20 years we saw so much happen. So how about the next 30, 40 years, right?
On the software side, like you might start seeing something crazy like real soon, because like the development of software side is like much faster than hardware.
So with these AI technologies, I mean, maybe we're looking at like something crazy in like 2-3 years even.
Right.
But hardware, I mean, we know Boston Dynamics is like working on these, complicated robots, and what's being developed at a much slower scale. So maybe we won't see like, war machines on the battlefield, in the next 10 years, but like AI will be there maybe. It's interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is all interesting, honestly baffling. I just can't wrap my head around it sometimes, to be honest with you guys. Especially with my background, again, that goes back to my background and sometimes inability to understand all these things and the intricacies of them. Maybe for you guys it's just plain and simple, it's just this and that. And then
It definitely is not.
It's not, right?
It's just a super wild field. I mean,
But I think the engineers I know from back home as well, they can be sometimes very focused on one topic, and you need it, of course. You need it for really diving into one field. But the overall picture, I think that mainly exists in a place like this, where there's more variety in the team, and that makes this such an inspiring place. You see better on an overall view of what the actual problem is, and you have the opportunity to go deeper in knowledge and to read papers and
Right.
get a bit bigger overview of what needs to be done.
Right. Definitely. You know, it's also interesting, like, so from your experience, what is the best or greatest contribution that you've ever kind of came across that biomedical engineering has provided for, healthcare in general?
I think again,
It's a loaded question, I think.
it has to be like AI, right? Like diagnosing diseases just early on, just looking at the symptoms with the help of AI. I think that's like one breakthrough.
I think I can go on a long debate about how this
Definitely.
is not necessarily as helpful as, one might think. So, for example, I mean, I think something that's helpful is, for example, fracture detection, which we work here on
Yeah.
a lot, right? With fixes and all these things. We have a huge project here working on fracture detection of the foot and ankle and other parts of the body as well. I mean, it's helpful to have a quick and easy and reliable fracture detection tool, right? Because you don't want to be sitting there looking at radiographs when you need to do 100 other things and trying to see that small hairline fracture, right? So that is if you do see it, eventually see it. But then there is this, latency bias, or because some diseases you could detect them earlier using AI, but are you actually helping the patient?
Yeah.
Are you actually helping the patient by detecting it earlier?
Sometimes you don't want to detect early. Is that?
No, it's not that you don't want to detect early, right? But for example, pancreatic cancer. Pancreatic cancer is one of the worst cancers, right? And maybe we're digressing a lot here, but pancreatic cancer is one of the worst cancers. People usually survive at most, or on average, a year after their diagnosis. And this is using conventional methods, right? Somebody comes in with a symptom, the doctor orders a CT scan, they see it on the CT scan, and because the patient is symptomatic at this point, right, the tumor is probably huge, right? That's the thing about pancreatic cancer. You don't really know about it until it's really too late. But then we realized that when we tried to employ methods that detected earlier or at earlier stages, these patients weren't living longer. Even when you treat them at an earlier stage. And this is probably very crude data, I'm not going into details, but they're not living longer, they're not having a better quality of life. So is it worth detecting it earlier and having the patient go through years of their end of life knowing that they have a cancer and change everything in their life? Or is it not really worth it and maybe...
But maybe
That's because we still don't have an effective way of acting this.
That is true.
When you do have to use
That is true.
treat it, I think it can be really valid.
That probably provides the value of creating an actual effective treatment, right? I completely agree with that. But in the current standpoint, sometimes, and this is just an example, right?
I think it's a funny question. I also had this question in the Netherlands, and the professor asked this to the student, and then there was like a debate like this: AI, very top-notch technologies, but then
The next slide he showed was a toilet, because a toilet gives a very easy solution to a lot of hygiene problems, right? You don't think it's really helping our life,
Right.
the quality of life.
Imagine your life without a toilet seat.
Without a toilet.
Oh my god.
It's just a stupid, simple idea, but it's so helpful and it has a big impact. That's also maybe like how you should answer this question. Like maybe the importance is not in the technology itself, but the way you use it.
Right, and what kind of horizons?
Horizons it opens up, and definitely. Well, I mean, I think this is a great topic. Thank you guys for talking to me about it. It's been a pleasure talking about what biomedical engineering has been, and what it probably will in our future, lifetime. And I'm really excited about this. I do want to extend my appreciation for the efforts of people like yourself. You guys facilitate the projects that we work on with you, of course. Without you, a lot of the work that we do not necessarily.
Thank you as well. We learned so much from you too.
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
So, yeah, thank you guys. Any last words, last remarks you want to add to this?
So we didn't really. So in our agenda,
We were thinking maybe we could go a little bit more deeper. We talked about 3D printing, but we also want to talk about like 3D design and especially like computer simulation. So maybe we can have a dedicated podcast in the future for that as well. Because I want to talk about like what goes in a computer simulation, finite element simulation, inputs, outputs. So that might be of interest as well for our next engineering podcast, maybe.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think this definitely deserves its own session.
Maybe we can describe a little bit what finite element modeling is, and then we do another podcast about how it actually
Absolutely.
works. Because finite element modeling, it's in the word, right? Like in the name, it's finite in a mesh world. So you make a mesh of things, and there's like a finite connections between a surface.
Yeah, it's all about like predicting, what's gonna happen in real life inside the computer, pretty much. So you need to define like your parameters, inputs, as close as to real life possible, so that your output will be accurate, and then you can say, hey, if these loads are exerted on this bone, it's gonna fracture, or it's gonna like, if it's under cyclic loading, it's gonna crack from fatigue or stuff like that. So, it's interesting that technology on that side is developing as well, trying to become more accurate results to what you might expect in real life. So yeah, I mean, that's
Definitely. I think it's very exciting, and I think we work on a few things here and there with FDA. Obviously, you have more experience than I do with this, but I think, it's definitely a very helpful tool, and I do believe it does deserve its own podcast session.
It's a hot topic.
I mean, if you want to give it its fair share of time, I think definitely. But for the sake of this session, I think, I think we spoke a good amount, especially setting the vibe with the 3D printing. I think we gave it its fair share, about 3D printing. So, appreciate your time, guys. Willem, Omer, thank you so much. And hopefully maybe we can have that next conversation as well. Absolutely.
It's a lot to tell you as I'm director. And you were a little bit of the interview as well.
Yeah, right? You kind of switch the table. Yeah. Well, appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Oh, we didn't shout out Kendall.
You don't need to.